Hello. Today's topic is systemic excellence. So it's about a system and it's about some kind of excellence. What exactly are we talking about? A bit simplified, a business is about two things. It's about doing the right things and it's about doing things right. Last time we discussed digital discovery and introduced the DD tool and DD method. Digital discovery is mostly about doing the right things. For example, choosing technology enablers to boost our operational efficiency. Or in more general terms, a strategic choice is about choosing what to do. Correspondingly, systemic excellence is about doing things right. It's about how to organize and how to optimize the customer value creation machine, also known as a company. And it's not insignificant how we do it. We will see that nothing less than excellence as a goal is sufficient. In this way, systemic excellence complements digital discovery. And neither of them survives without the other. Let's have a closer look.
There are many ways to achieve temporary competitive advantage. For example, by investing 5 millions to a new production line, or with a clever move in the markets. But if it's long-term competitiveness you are after, build for systemic excellence. This is the Anna Karenina principle for strategic management. In other words, there are many ways to do it wrong, but only one way of doing it right. To set the scene, let's start with a short example. When it comes to success in this millennium, one NFL football team stands out: New England Patriots. Since 2001, Patriots have appeared 11 times in Super Bowl and have won 6 championship titles. During that time, they have won their own division 16 times. Football team is a system with on-stage and backstage part. On-stage is visible to us all. For example, success in a football game depends on the performance of the offensive line subsystem. In run plays, it's about blocking. In pass plays, it's about protecting the quarterback. But the non-visible backstage part is equally important. It's about coaching, training, organizing processes, and so on. And when the going gets tough in those critical playoff games, Patriots head coach Bill Belichick does not ask for miracles. Instead, he repeats time and again, do your job. Patriots is clearly not about individual stars, but about the team. It has a resilience needed not only during games, but also between seasons when key players get recruited to other teams. Again and again, Patriots' system does not seem to get much affected by these losses. Instead, the performance returns soon to earlier level. All this has been going on for almost 20 years. Certainly, there have been many trying to imitate the Patriots' way, but somehow it seems to be difficult to copy. And that is what we are discussing today. Many things need to click for systemic excellence. Today we will focus on activity system, but before that, let's go quickly through the 5 others. For now, the key question is, why are they important in achieving systemic excellence? Let's start from customer journey. Customer journey, with its multitude of touchpoints, is about how customer experiences the company and taps into the value it creates. From the company perspective, it's about reaching the customer to make a positive impact while delivering that value. Hence, it is clear that customer journey is an integral part of systemic excellence. This applies to all companies, but the importance is even greater in the service business. Data and analytics is another key component. In order to optimize the performance of any system, you need to have reliable data. In the case of business, the data is about internal operations, but also about customers, the activity, experience, and status. Analytics is needed to interpret the data for decision making, to diagnose, and ideally to predict. Business processes serve a dual purpose. First, they are about standardizing repeat activities, as any business is about task repetition for customer value creation. But business processes are also about decisions. They define what needs to be decided and when. That takes us to governance structure. Operational decision making is in the heart of running a business. How to organize that is not insignificant. Without governance structure, a typical mistake is to use line organization for business decisions. That leads to situation where cross-functional decisions are done in functional silos. That cannot result in anything good. With governance structure complementing business processes, daily operations take giant leap towards efficiency. Finally, IT systems are there to form the business infrastructure enabling operational efficiency. Missing critical IT improvements and investments can be really harmful. Why is this? Because catching up takes time, as it's never about off the shelf and plug and play, but about integration for systemic excellence. Now, let's turn our focus on activity system. Basically, it is strategy work and strategic choices that bring us here. In that, digital discovery plays a key role. As the name implies, activity system is there to activate the strategy. Let's have a closer look. Activity system as a concept dates back many years. Porter's original article is still worth the read. What he is saying is that strategy should be seen through activities and that company is about system of activities. And not just a random collection of activities, but a well-designed and carefully implemented system of activities that are consistent and mutually reinforcing. Another key principle is strategic choice, ability to say what not to do, where not to focus. And finally, that competitive advantage becomes sustainable through carefully optimized system. Copying that is difficult because its roots are deep in the organization and its way of working. There's a modern way of describing activity system. The cornerstones are still the same: systemic nature, consistency, mutual reinforcement, and the idea that the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. But now, with improved structure and clarity, it becomes more practical and useful in daily management. Before going to activity system details, let's think about familiar real-life case: Southwest Airlines. What is low-cost airline business all about? By definition, ticket prices should be low. That is needed to compete with other means of personal transportation. But how to do healthy business then? By ensuring high asset utilization, that planes, the single biggest investment items, are generating revenue as effectively as possible. How to achieve that? With streamlined and optimized processes and with skilled and flexible workforce. Sounds simple. Yes, but be warned. The devil is in the details. As a leadership challenge, it's more complicated than meets the eye. Southwest has been the pioneer in low-cost airline business. Many have tried to copy them, some have succeeded, but many have failed. So how exactly do we use activity system to design and build a winning business? And how could we use it for communication while doing that? When pushing for business renewal and organizational transformation. In short, how could activity system be used as a practical management tool? Let's dig deeper. Activity system is built on four distinct perspectives: resources and assets, business processes, customer perspective, and financial perspective. Southwest Airlines example refers only to human capital side of resources, but it's useful to handle resources more widely, covering tangible and intangible assets used for customer value creation. A key activity system principle is that perspectives build on each other. For example, business processes build on personnel skills. Correspondingly, customer value and experience depend on how good we are with business processes. Finally, good financial result is based on everything else. In other words, how good we are in customer value creation with the total set of capabilities we possess. The layer structure is what ultimately makes activity system so powerful. There are multiple reasons for that. First, now it becomes possible to describe strategy through key activities. One could even claim that strategy is defined by activities. In other words, strategy becomes functional and linkage between strategy and activity becomes concrete. But it is guiding rules where rubber truly meets the road. Guiding rules need to be clear and crisp. Often negative form works best, what not to do. This is where strategy becomes concrete and meaningful to every employee. And this is why activity system is special. It is a management tool that captures traditional high-flying strategy statements and meaningful rules in one view. There are only two short steps separating the two. Let's move on. For an activity system to bring sustainable competitive advantage, it needs to be strong. But where does the strength reside? In the consistency and mutual reinforcement of the individual elements. As a simple design rule, an activity system must be more than the sum of its parts. Without that, we might as well just create a flat list of activities and rules. It is not by chance that Southwest Airlines or Patriots have stayed on top of the pack for tens of years. It is because of careful design and implementation of system of activities. Since asset utilization is in central role in low-cost airline business, it's worth spending some time thinking about factors driving and factors enabling high utilization. This basically applies to all service businesses, but the situational factors vary a lot. The devil is in the details. And speaking of which, while the element titles need to be concrete and crisp, the element contents must be documented too. There are two reasons for that. First, every business is unique and so must activity system be. The element title may stay the same, but its interpretation and application differs from one situation to another. The source for competitive advantage lies in the roots of the organization and its way of working. This is about describing the roots. Another reason for careful documentation is alignment. It's about all stakeholders having shared understanding of the element, its meaning, and business implications. Good alignment is important not only during the design phase, but also in strategic communication and even more so later in the future. We will come back to activity system maintenance in a while. But for now, high plane utilization serves as an example. Let's zoom in. Here we have captured the two dominant drivers for Southwest Airlines' financial performance. Together they form the basis for the key business target of profitable growth. From them, it is possible to derive both operational focus as well as the key areas for business development. Operational focus in the form of activities and line organization target setting, business development focus in the form of development projects. Let's move on. Some activity system elements deserve a strategic measure assigned to them. Assignment usually means that a management team member takes the ownership of the measure and reports it in an ongoing basis. Here are two examples of strategic measure candidates. Let's zoom into measure based on gate turnaround times. While at gate, an airplane is not serving anybody. In other words, the $100 million asset is not producing anything. So it might be a good idea to measure the average turnaround delay across all destinations and over time, and initiate corrective actions when need be. Let's move on. Activity system can be used as a basis for short-term target setting for the line organization. For example, sales and marketing targets could be derived from customer and financial perspectives, or from the resources and assets perspective, human resources development targets could be assigned for all line managers. Or, instead of a vertical line organization target, a horizontal cross-functional business development project could be launched on the basis of activity system. Let's look at development project related to gate turnaround times. This example shows how relatively simple guiding rule may result in multiple development needs. In fact, this could be handled as a development program consisting of 6 individual development projects. As with strategic measures, the ownership and reporting are to be allocated to a senior manager. The amount of details needed in a high-quality activity system is not small, hence it takes some effort to get it all in place. However, the payoff can be very high, as the Southwest Airlines case shows us. The first step is to set strategic principles for each perspective. Then consider key activities needed. Guiding rules design takes typically some reflection time and a couple of iterations before getting them right. The overall design goal is to make activity system into a practical management tool for frequent use. In long term, activity system is also an evolving tool. However, you need to watch out for strategic drift. Strategic drift occurs when many small changes done over time cause perfectly good strategy to become suboptimal or even obsolete. This can happen without anybody noticing when, for example, customer requests of all types are served without questions and without strategic reflection. However, when done carefully, small adjustments over time only make activity system stronger. Indeed, ideally activity system serves as an anchor, preventing strategic drift while also supporting adjustments required by strategic agility. Systemic excellence is more than activity system, but activity system is a very good tool and method to design, communicate, and develop systemic excellence. It is not possible to communicate all systemic excellence details in a digestible form shared by everybody in the organization. With the help of activity system, communication and alignment become possible. Indeed, if organizational transformation and change management have anything to do with systemic excellence, then activity system is not to be missed. On-stage, backstage split is a good way to think about systemic excellence. While only the service part is visible, there's much more in play. Things that create company's competitive profile and eventually its unified identity and brand experience. Let's take a couple of examples. First, what would managing and developing customer experience mean in this context? Surely it would not be about isolated point solutions in a couple of customer journey touchpoints, focusing only on the tip of the iceberg. For significant and lasting positive impact on customer experience, you need to address the whole system at the same time. This is Systems Theory 101. Another example. What would transformation to service and solution business imply? For sure, the impact would not be limited to company's offering or competitive profile only. Rather, in order to do well in the new business with the new business model, you need a whole new design, a fresh design that builds on systemic excellence. When you come to think of it, business is really about a tale of two lands, the land of discovery and the land of excellence. The land of discovery is filled with excitement in search for new growth. But life there is not always easy, as the many options bring uncertainty and even angst for not knowing anything for sure. And whatever you do, it needs to be small scale to limit the risk. Trialing and customer pilots are often the way to verify assumptions on the markets. The pressure is constant. How to ensure that we are doing the right things? Life is different in the land of excellence. There's fundamental clarity as the assignment is about execution rather than thinking about endless options. This is where the real men live, as everything is about large scale and big investments. This is where customer value is produced in high volumes. Alas, life is not without complications here either. With large scale comes high risk. Screwing up is costly. So here too there's a constant pressure. How to ensure we are doing things right? In this context, the key question must be, what needs to take place when you cross the bridge? That is, when you have found new source for value and growth. When you have verified it so that you have proof in addition to hopes, dreams, and claims. After today's discussion, answering the question should be straightforward. 1. It must no longer be somebody's pet project, but for the whole organization. 2. As the need for excellence enters the picture, it'll be about systemic integration. 3. It's no longer about small-scale point solution, but about large-scale production. As a final observation, true business renewal depends on success in both lands. That's what digital discovery and systemic excellence are about. That's all for now. From now on, Leading Digital YouTube channel will focus on these 3 themes: digital discovery for doing the right things, systemic excellence for doing things right, leading digital framework for overall navigation. Let me know what you think. Thanks, and go Browns!